Eric, can I ask you a little bit about your safety group? Obviously, with Miles Scott out, what are you seeing from those other guys and the reps they're getting, especially Sabor and Matt?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's been awesome, man. They've really come along, right? I mean, I know we just had practice 4 today, but just the brotherhood and camaraderie, and just to see Miles obviously helping some of the guys, man, it's been so awesome, right? They've made, I mean, you know, you got Mac out there, you got Sabor, Ben Clausen. I mean, they're all, obviously Matt Bailey, they're all playing at a really, really high level just in terms of the communication that they've been having. You know, we meet a lot, you know. I think it's just due in large part is those guys get together a lot on their own, and they just want to make their peers and the guys around them better. You know, I think when you had the season that we've had, right, and you have some success, right, just a little bit of success kind of feeds into like guys wanting more, you know, and so just see those to continue to see those guys come together and how much they meet, man, it's just so awesome, and it's so refreshing as a coach, right? Because it isn't about me, it isn't about the calls that we put in, but it's about the brotherhood, and it's about how do they handle what we're trying to get done, right? And so the first couple of days have obviously been in the red area, you know, but it's been so cool to see a level of communication. And you know, I'm watching Ben Clausen, right, talk to one of the young bucks, right, about like where we're at on the field, which is like awesome. You know what I mean? It's so freaking cool, right? I'm watching Matt Bailey, right, get after a guy just because of the importance of being in the red area and how you can go from a good defense to an elite defense by not giving up things in the red area. So it's just refreshing just to see those guys continue to grow.
If we stay in the secondary without Xavier, who is getting a lot of those nickel reps? I think Tyson would be in that mix. What have they shown you through 4 practices?
Tyson's getting a lot of those nickel reps. I mean, he is, you know, he's still learning, but I think his future's really bright. You know, obviously played a little bit of wide receiver last year, you know, and just to fully hone in on this position is so cool and refreshing because there's not a lot of 6'4", 6'5" nickels lining up who are really athletic, really fast, who are as long as he is, right? Like he made a play the other day in practice, right? Like I don't think nobody else would have made that play just because of his length. You know, he just brings another dynamic to our secondary because of how long he is. You know what I'm saying? Like his skill set is so unique and it's so different from some of those other cats. And it's just refreshing because he's still young. He's still learning, and he's picking up the system and the scheme. Obviously, he came in here as a corner, right? We played him at corner, a little bit of nickel, but I think he's truly bought in just from an understanding standpoint of what we're trying to get done. And, you know, like you don't want to see, because we got some guys out, you don't want to see those guys out, but it's refreshing because some guys that we need to see get reps, they've been getting a lot of reps and they're making huge strides, man. Like Tyson has really come along, and you know he's running with that first group, and it's really cool to see. You know, like he's getting better at each and every practice, and it's very refreshing. Obviously, you know there's still things that he's learning, right? Just processing the game. But I think about a kid who played 1 year of high school football, right? That cat was a tennis player and a basketball player a majority of his life, and just to see the strides that he's made, right? We still obviously got to develop him in some points in what we're trying to get done, but you know his body's filling out. Like I think he's like 200 now or 198, right, or 205 around that mark. But I mean he is somebody that I'm really excited about moving forward. You know,
Most 6'4", 6'5" guys could cover in space. What allows him to do that or gives you guys confidence?
The good Lord has blessed him. You know, like I know it's natural when you see a guy that long and that athletic to say he got a problem struggling in coverage, but like, you know, the good Lord just blessed some people with a certain skill set, right? LeBron James is blessed, right? Not to compare him with LeBron James, but right, Allen Iverson was blessed, right? Kobe Bryant was blessed, right? Tyson is blessed because he's extremely unique, right? There isn't a lot of guys with his stature, his skill level that can move like he can move. And as long and rangy as he is, right, I truly believe he can play all 5 positions in the secondary just because of the element of his ability. But, you know, I think what's really helping him is the fact that he was a tennis player, right? Those guys move laterally so much. The fact that he was a basketball player, I mean, you should see his basketball highlights are freaking unbelievable. We got a couple of good basketball players in secondary, but, you know, that ability to move from side to side and move laterally, right, is really benefiting him being a defensive back. You know, it doesn't look as fluid as some smaller guys, right? Like the Torrey Cox of the world and Juice Clark, but you know, like he covers so much more ground because of his size and his stature, you know, although it may look a little different. So that is just a young man that we're just going to keep developing. And I mean, he can't get enough reps, you know, and I'm really, really excited about him.
Any true freshmen, early enrollee guys jumping out at you?
Yeah, they're actually getting a lot of reps, right? Zanai has been getting a ton of reps, right? We're playing him a little bit at nickel. He's playing some safety for us. He's been doing some good things. That joker is beyond intelligent, right? Like, I mean, he probably, this is practice 4. You know, he's picking up the playbook at a pace that I've never seen a freshman come in and pick it up at. Like, it is highly impressive. Obviously, it helps to have a older brother who plays here as well. But you know, he's extremely intelligent. I know Tanner's not a true freshman, but I can't say enough good things about Tanner Heckle, man. He is Kansas. I hope Kansas keep putting out talent. I mean, he was a hidden gem, man. But that he is as talented as any cat we've had come through this building, just from a skill set standpoint, right? Like, and he hadn't. You know, obviously he played some 8-man football, but just his patience, his ability, his athleticism is just so unique because typically, right, I know Illinois is not known for having white corners, right? I mean, it just hadn't been a lot of them. Just a game of football, it hadn't been a lot of white corners. So you see him out there lined up at corner, or you see him lined up at nickel, and you're like, who is this cat? And then he starts running, and you're like, oh my goodness. Then you see him leave the ground and go for a ball, and it's like, okay, he may not be white. You know what I mean? Like this dude is like, this dude is different. You know what I mean? But I mean, he's just very, very unique, right? He's super talented. But we got some young guys in secondary, man. I'm really, really excited about. But again, that's why I love spring ball, you know, because I think for us, you know, especially with me and Coach Lunny, going into year 3 together. I think it's year 3 together, right? Like, we're trying to find out who can help us, right? Like, it's not about trying to scheme each other up, but just find out who can help us. They got some guys on that side of the ball, right? Like, I can't say Braden Trimble is a freak show. I can't say enough about him, but they got some guys on that side of the ball. I'm sure they're trying to do the same, but you know, we're really trying to just see these guys continue to progress and see how they're going to help us during the course of the season.
What was the rationale, I guess the reasoning to move Tanner from safety to corner?
So ironically enough, right, like, so our nickels, he was playing nickel, and our nickels play outside and inside, right? You'll see Xavier Scott line up outside. Like when Quan was here, he lined up outside, you know. So we just want them guys to have flex, right? Torrey Cox will line up inside, Juice will line up inside a little bit, right? So we want those guys to have flex because what we do and how we do it, like if you can play nickel or you can play corner, you can play nickel. And so we just, you know, it was actually Coach's suggestion, right? Stubbornly enough, I wanted to keep him inside, selfishly enough, right? And Coach B kind of suggested it. And we, after Coach suggested it, was like, well, we got time. So we kind of slowly just threw him out there, put him out there. And he's been obviously working with Coach Parker. And I think that's really a testament to Coach Parker, right? Coach Parker's an elite level ball coach. Like just from a developmental standpoint, what he teaches those guys, I mean, it's so cool and so impressive. And Tanner's a sponge. Like Tanner's also a 4.0 student, you know, which probably a lot of people don't know. Like he is highly, highly, highly intelligent. You can tell Tanner Heckle something one time and he may remember for the rest of his life. Like his memory is like so impeccable. You can teach him something one time and he's going to do it forever, right? And I think part of it is because he hadn't played a lot of defensive back, he hadn't had to unlearn some things in order to learn them and be better at them. I mean, some of this stuff is just natural, and then some of it is first time doing it, and he's just so fluid at it. He's probably the best basketball player on the team. He's also an elite level basketball player, which helped in transitioning and moving from side to side and moving laterally. But it just came, Coach kind of suggested it, right? And you know, me and Coach Parker, hey man, let's find out if he can do it, right? Because if he can't do it, we can move him inside easily. But if he can do it, right, maybe he can be pretty special at it, you know. And he's been doing a really, really good job at it thus far, you know.
With official assistant position coaches for the last year, what difference maybe you've seen in the impact or their feedback where they're on the field as opposed to when they might have been like a step removed as an analyst or a GA?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me personally, it really didn't change from my perspective because I've always tried to gather feedback from analysts or GAs or whatever the case may be, because all those guys, they They are in a room with us. They see things that I may miss, right? I think about Grant Morgan, right? And all those guys in our room, they are highly intelligent football coaches. And so I guess now adding the assistant title, it really hadn't really changed nothing for me. That's probably more of a Coach B question in regards to dollars. But I always just try to get feedback, whether a guy was an analyst, a GA, right, whatever the case may be, because they all have really, really good insight and feedback, you know. And I know we can't do everything, and I got to coordinate. I got to make sure it's together. But if there's a good idea and a good thought behind something, man, I'm all for it, especially if it helps us defensively, right? Like, obviously, Coach Arch coming in, being here after a year, Coach Parker, those guys had ideas that we incorporated this season that was brilliant, right? Coach James came in and obviously been former defensive coordinator. He had some thoughts and ideas that we hadn't put in yet, but we're going to put in that are really good. You know what I mean? Coach Brock comes in and, right, being a high school coach and former college coach, he has thoughts and ideas, and it's like super impressive. And I'm like, man, I can't wait till we start running this stuff, right? Coach Myers Hendrickson, right? He's an offensive guy by trade, but right, him being my right hand, having thoughts on how we can attack a certain formation or run something specific from an offensive standpoint. That is probably the best insight I can ever have, just from the standpoint of he sees it from an offensive perspective, you know, and he can give me insight and detail on some things that may benefit us and it may not, right? But I think spring ball is a great time to kind of gather and formulate all those ideas and kind of, okay, well, what can we utilize that can potentially help us, right? Some of the stuff I'm not going to like, right? I'm not going to like, we're probably not going to run, but there's some stuff like within the framework of what we do, right? Like, you try to take it in and find out how does it benefit you, because at the end of the day, these offenses are so good. Like, they're so good. And if you're going to sit there and say you're one defense, you're kidding yourself, right? Like, you have to be multiple, right? From the teams that we're going to play this season, like, you have to be multiple, and you got to have some diversity in what you're doing and utilize the skill sets of certain players to add to that diversity to help you in the long run. So I've always tried to listen to assistants or GAs or analysts, just because, right, I think they got great insight, and I know they're up here grinding with me. I mean, that doesn't mean I always utilize it, but I always just try to hear it, and if it's applicable to what we're doing, gather that information and see how we can install it.
How's competition up front going? You got a combination of portal guys and young guys that are kind of still developing.
That is probably the position that I'm probably most excited about, just our front seven, man. It's been some great competition. It's going extremely well. All those guys are doing a phenomenal job, right? Like, we've primarily been in a red area, so we haven't done a ton of stuff in the field outside of, I think, practice one, but it's all been really, really good, right? In that area of the field, right, there's a certain way we want to rush the passer, and we want to be detailed in that regard. And so, but it's been really, really good watching those guys compete daily. I'm really, really excited about that room and that unit. And I think Coach Jameson and Coach Panos, right, and Coach Trent is doing a phenomenal job, and Coach Kim getting those guys ready to kind of attack what we're trying to get done from a defensive standpoint.
How do you use the meeting room time in the spring to kind of evaluate how guys learn? Because I imagine Matt Grusevich doesn't learn the same way as Sabor Kareem, and you have to figure that out and how to get them up to speed.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, like I said before, we don't have playbooks here, right? So if you don't write nothing down, that is the first sign that I know that you learn different. It's trying. And so I try to collect their playbooks or their notebooks probably once a week. I know that's like some grade school stuff, but I just try to collect them to just view them, because that lets me know not only who's taking notes, but how they're taking them, right? And so if I see a guy whose notebook isn't written in and he's making errors, that's you, right? You're not writing them down, right? I'll oftentimes reference this in our meeting, right? Like, if these young men are on a college campus, right, they see a beautiful girl and they want to approach her and they want her number, typically they're going to walk up to her, get to know her, and ask her for a phone number. If they don't have their phone on them, they're going to do everything in their power to remember that number or write it down in some capacity. Right? Like, that's just what it is. You know what I mean? Maybe that's their future wife, but they're going to do whatever they can to make sure that they write that number down or memorize that number. There's a level of care there that they want to apply to remembering that number because that's somebody they found attractive. Well, this game ain't no different, right? If you want to be the player that you're capable of being, especially after being on a team and a roster of players that you've seen get drafted, that you've seen walk these hallways, that you've seen sit in the meeting rooms with you, don't tell me that you want all of this and I open your notebook and I don't see it. You know what I mean? And so we don't have that issue, thank God, you know, because guys take high level notes. They do a great job, you know, and but they do learn different. And with that being said, right, I may have to meet with, because we got some assistant coaches, I may have to pull Sabor or pull Mac one-on-one and meet with them because they operate a little better in that setting, you know. And so that's just knowing your players, you know, like some guys don't do well meeting in a group setting as opposed to when they're one-on-one or it's two players at a time in a room. They're a little better in those settings. But we make it work. They've been doing a really good job thus far. And then we obviously got a million assistants around who also help them and aid them in that regard, you know, when there's something that I can't do because I'm working on something.